Today's episode is sponsored by Newspapers.com, the largest online newspaper archive. Newspapers.com makes it easy to find your family's story, with more than 500 million digitized newspaper pages from the 1690s to today. Search for obituaries, marriage announcements, birth announcements, photos, and more in papers from across the United States, the UK, Canada, and beyond, stretching back 3 generations. For listeners of this podcast, Newspapers.com is offering 20% off a Publisher Extra subscription. Just use the coupon code FamilyTreeMagazine at checkout. That's code FamilyTreeMagazine, all one word, for 20% off Publisher Extra. Welcome to Family Tree Magazine's Best Websites podcast. This is the podcast devoted to finding the best websites to help you with your genealogy research. I'm Lisa Louise Cook. There is more digitized material than ever before available for African American genealogical research. And in her article called Black Roots Online, author Shamele Jordon covers 12 premier websites that can help you find your ancestors. And the good news is she's here today to talk about one of the best websites. It's called Enslaved, and you can find that at enslaved.org. Welcome to the podcast, Shamele.
Hi, Lisa. Thank you so much for having me here.
Oh, we always love to have you here. I've been really enjoying the article. Your article covers 12 of the premier websites for African American research, some of which I'm sure our listeners have heard about before. Places like Family Search and Ancestry, and you really help them figure out, kind of what to be looking for there. But enslaved.org may be new to some of our listeners. What can we expect to find at this website?
Enslaved.org is a powerhouse site. And you can find so many of the wonderful records that help those researching African American lineages to connect and be able to fill in more details about their family, like things that we're used to finding, but all in one place, like auction notices, bills of sales, registers for, believe it or not, at enslaved.org, registers of free people of color. So enslaved.org is not just people who were enslaved. It also includes free people of color and the enslaver. Emancipation documents, you'll find actually lineages, wills, probate records, all those runaway ads. Let's not forget about runaway ads. All those juicy, wonderful, mini to large collections that really are impactful for researching African Americans.
Wow, that's an amazing array of material. I noticed you mentioned in the article as well, they have interactive databases and visualizations. They're really just coming at it from all angles, right?
So they have done an amazing job. First of all, before you even get to the visualizations, the ability of them to be able to pull these databases together, all these different data sets into one website, is amazing. So it's at least 27, it might be a little bit more, 27 different databases coming from different sources from throughout the world. A lot of different universities have contributed and continue to contribute to this collection.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you about. Who's behind the website? How did it come into being? And are they continually actively adding new content?
So yeah, this was a project that began, I think it was about 2011. And it began off of an earlier project called Slave Biographies, the Atlantic Database Network. And their goal really is to partner and to bring together these various data sets. And in 2019, they were able to successfully link these together and make it available to the public. And what they did is, like, a lot of the databases that are contained within this on this site are sets that we have had access to before, like the Louisiana slave database, which is, this was the brainchild of at Mississippi State, Gwendolyn Midlow Hall. She recently passed away. That's a database we've always had access to. A newer database, Slave Voyages, the transatlantic slave trade database by Emory, also including African origins. So this allows you to come and look at these at one site, whereas Slave Voyages focused on the migration from one place to the other, visualizing that migration pattern. Enslaved.org is more personalized. It's about the people involved in the slave trade, whether it was the enslaved, the enslaver, free people of color, anyone who would have been connected. So yeah, it's definitely one that's growing. I've just recently noticed that there is a smaller database, which I'm looking forward to that happening. A lot of different smaller databases being added. An example is one called, it had to do with the enslaved people of former President James Monroe. He was in Virginia. He had a plantation in Virginia. And he decided that, he didn't need this plantation and he didn't need these enslaved people anymore. So he sold them to someone in Florida. And I think it's called Take Them in Families. So I don't know if there was something specific where the enslaved population had to move together, but they were sold down to Jefferson County, Florida. And the documentation of this is included in this database. And yeah, so I could keep talking like 1,000 because there's so much wonderful things here. The other thing I just want to say before I pause is that not only is it a database of a data set providing you with the data, it also, in a lot of cases, links you to the actual documents. For instance, I found a Free People of Color list register of those who were delinquent on taxes. And once you selected a person, you could click on a link that took you to the website, the university website, that contain the actual transcriptions and the actual images. So, and you won't get that all the time, but this is what is amazing about this site is it's one search that can take you to many, many different size databases across the world.
Yeah, it's exciting to see how they're pulling it together so you can kind of start in one spot, but know that you're not missing a small, unique data set that might be somewhere else that would never have, risen up to the top of your Google search list or whatever. I mean, here you can kind of start in one spot. Before I ask you about search, because I know that's really your strong suit and you're going to help us find some things on this website, is it free or are there any costs involved in accessing whether it's records or the data?
That's the beauty of it, Lisa. It's free. This is free.
Oh, we like that.
Free. No dollar signs. Like a dollar sign with a slash through it. It's totally free stuff. This is being brought together by different grants. I think the last one was Mellon, and I think before that it was the National Humanities provided funds to create this. And I would like to say to help this grow, we should be sharing this with our academic friends. There's a lot of different, like I just met a couple of people at Rutgers, uh, professors who are doing projects on enslaved people in New Jersey. And I said, please, are you going to put this on enslaved.org? And they knew about enslaved.org, but I don't know if their project plan included putting that data set here, because that's the point of it, to help it to grow. So we can be advocates for it as well.
You said that when we do our searches, and you're going to give us some strategies for that, we might be able to click over and link to the actual records. And then you mentioned the data. Are you talking about we might see more of an index of sorts where there's somebody's transcribed that data, but we're not looking at the original document?
Right. So on the site, there'll be basic data points. And so it's not necessarily, so it's really people, places, events, and sources. And so within each data set, there will be different fields that they are capturing. And within enslaved.org, it will be kind of like a standard looking template. And then when you click on the link, that will push you out to the actual image and possible transcription of the record where they're collecting the data from.
Interesting. Okay. Well, we'd love to have you give us some of your best search strategies. How should we begin searching? And do you have any special tips of things that we should try?
Sure. So first of all, realize that this is not ancestry.com. It's not family search. It's not family search. This is really, it's not all about searching, putting your name in. And if it's not there, then, who cares about that site? One thing you want to realize, what Lisa asked earlier, is it growing? This site is a growing site. And you can keep up with its growth. They actually have a journal that they publish that you can check out that publishes the data sets and the articles that go with it. But when you come to this site, first you want to have traced your people back to slavery time, which is, before 1865. So you want to get them back to at least 1870. While I am going to say that this site does have documentation that goes from 1587 all the way to 1957, it's really about learning about your enslaved person. So you want to think about doing this in two ways: searching and browsing. And so browsing, I would say you want to first take a look at all of the different databases they have. So when you go to the site, at the top, the menu, you want to just select data and scroll through and look at the different databases that they have. They'll tell you how many records are in there, how many people there are in there. You can also do what they call, Lisa brought up, the visualizations. So the visualizations give you a quick visual of the project or the database. So for instance, going into the Louisiana database, you can click on to see how many people, how many events, how many places are part of this database. So that gives you an idea about the database. Also, it'll give you a link. You can click on a link to go to the website about the database. And so I would definitely, take a browse, click on people, see what you can see. And whenever you do a search within the results, you get filters where you can narrow it down to what you're looking at. That'll be on the left side. The one thing that I would do, whether you're browsing or searching, is to look at which projects, meaning which databases, are contributing to your search results. And you can look at it by search results. Like I said, there's a Louisiana slave database. There's also biographies of the enslaved era. That's a Harvard collection. lots of different databases, but use that as a way to kind of understand what you're looking at. In that biography of enslaved era, there is just so many different types of documents. It tells you, like, for instance, I'll give you the story of two different ones. When you think of a biography, you're thinking of someone of note, right? So there's Florida Ruffin Riley. She was a free woman. She was also a suffragette. She was probably a genealogist because she was a preservationist as well. There's information about her. And then there's also another information in that same biography collection about Celia and her execution for murdering her father. And her father was also the father of her 4 children. So you're going to find all sorts of things in here. So I invite you to browse by looking at the databases and going in it that way. And then also doing a search. Use the advanced search and go to place. Like I went to advanced search and I went to place and I put in Florida. There's 2 things I noticed. One is that it's not an exact search because it brought me back searches where the name was Florida as opposed to the place name being Florida. But I still was able to go through those and filter, take a look at it by project. And so my suggestion to you is to definitely go in and search by your places, by state level, and you can drill down to counties, which we love. And if you have the name of someone, go ahead and put that search in as well. But definitely take advantage of the ability to search by state and look at the different projects. Go to their websites. Learn more about those projects that are doing indexes of your locations. And so those would be my suggestions on how to search and take advantage of this amazing, amazing website.
It sounds terrific. We so appreciate you help us getting familiar with it, figuring out how to kind of approach it to have success in finding more information. Those of you listening, you can have more success in your research by checking out Shamele's article. It's called Black Roots Online. You will find it in the February 2023 issue of Family Tree Magazine. And you can also go visit Shamele's YouTube channel. It's called Genealogy Quick Start at youtube.com/genealogy quick start. It's always good to talk to you. Thank you so much for sharing enslaved.org.
Nice to talk to you too. Thank you, Lisa.
That wraps up this episode of Family Tree Magazine's Best Websites podcast. You can join the conversation over at Facebook at Family Tree Magazine and at Twitter at Family Tree Mag. And a great way to stay in touch with us is to sign up for our free genealogy email newsletter. You'll find that at familytreemagazine.com/newsletter-sign-up. I'm Lisa Louise Cook, and you can find me over at the Genealogy Gems podcast. Thanks so much for listening. We'll have another great website for genealogy just for you in our next episode. Talk to you then.